Hello everyone, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In this video, we will be discussing the recent UPSC Mains GS3 paper. So let's begin. The first question in the GS3 2022 Mains. Why is public-private partnership, that is PPP model, required in the infrastructure projects? Examine the role of PPP model in the redevelopment of the railway stations in India. Two important components in the question. First, directly the UPSC has asked, why is PPP required for the infrastructure project? As and when I tell you, usually here in the introduction, you will have to define what is this public-private partnership model. So PPP refers to the cooperative arrangement between the government organization and a private firm. Okay, as the name itself suggests, public-private partnership, private firm to execute a project or provide services to the local population for a long term. See, why do we need PPP is because for any infrastructure project, let's assume, any infrastructure project, let it be the construction of roads or the construction of the infrastructure like bridges or the railway lines, it requires a lot of money. And if a government expends such money, the expenditure is carried out from the consolidated fund of India, as the infrastructure project has a long gestation period, okay, it will not be viable for the government to carry out such an infrastructure project or finance an infrastructure project. So public-private partnership, in the public-private partnership, both government and the private firm will have a joint cooperation. Okay, because of this cooperation and coordination happening between the government and the private firm, the project will be completed in a very efficient way and the project will not be a burden on the government. Okay, this is the reason why we need PPP project. Okay, examine the role of PPP model in the redevelopment of the railway stations in India. Okay, see, according to the national infrastructure pipeline that the government has come up with, the infrastructure creation has been one of the most important pillar of the development. Okay, this is undisputed. So in this scenario, how will this PPP model help in the redevelopment of the railway stations? As this is a 10 marker, you can have one subheading and you are writing the loopholes in the railway infrastructure. Okay, there you can have. And how do we make use of this public private partnership? You can see this national infrastructure pipeline requires the investment in the Indian railways up to 11.43 lakh crore. So for this investment to come in, for this capital to come into the Indian economy, the public private partnership is utmost efficient. And you can also write the advantages of the public private partnership. Whenever we have the private partners coming in, the efficiency of the infrastructure construction and also the maintenance increases. Whenever the efficiency increases, then the service delivery will also enhance. So that is the advantage of having PPP model, which is very crucial for the Indian economy. Second question, is the inclusive growth possible under a market economy? State the significance of financial inclusion in achieving the economic growth in India. Again, two important concepts where the first component of the question directly asks about the inclusive growth. See, inclusive growth is a very important key term mentioned in the GS3 syllabus. If you have just gone through the GS3 syllabus, inclusive growth is something that you wouldn't have missed. Okay, so in the introduction you will have to define inclusive growth, or you can quote the current data that was out by the Oxfam report. So the Oxfam report said 10% of the Indian population own around 56% of the national wealth. Okay, so this is the inequality. So because of this Oxfam report that came out, UPSC has asked the question on the inclusive growth. Okay, so we will define inclusive growth. What is this inclusive growth? Inclusive growth involves the impartial allocation of the resources with the benefits incurred to every section of the society, and allocation of the resources must be focused on the intended short and the long-term benefits of the society. In simple words, you can write inclusive growth as the growth model where the fruits of growth and development are distributed among all the stakeholders. So that will be inclusive growth. Okay, I hope you're following. Inclusive growth is not completely possible in case of a market economy, because the market economy works on the principle of demand and supply. The economy that India is following, the mixed economy, also works on the principle of demand and supply, and here the intervention of the state would be very minimal. So in this scenario, it depends upon the market with a limited intervention by the government. And that limited intervention by the government should promote inclusive growth. That's how it should be. So outrightly we can't say that the inclusive growth is impossible in the market economy. It is possible, but the state intervention, which is minimal, should be focused towards inclusive growth. Okay, you can see here the labor can also get exploited for generating higher profits with no increasing in the wages, because it is a market economy which will be ruled by the capitalist. The basic necessities may be harder to provide as they are affected by the demand and supply, because profiteering is favored over social welfare. Okay, this is the opinion that you will have to take in this particular answer. Third one, what are the major challenges of the PDS, that is public distribution system in India? How can it be made effective and transparent? A very well expected question, because the questions on the public distribution system has been asked in the UPSC, that is GS3, from the last 4 to 5 years. Every year there has been one or two questions on the PDS. So this becomes a very important topic even for 2023 prelims and mains. What is this public distribution system is what something that you will have to define in the introduction. It involves a system of management of scarcity through distribution of the food grains at affordable prices. Okay. What are the major challenges of the public distribution system? See, the major challenge of the public distribution system, you can include them to be the procurement by the FCI. See, FCI godowns are having excess food grains. Okay, excess food grains, and these excess food grains are getting wasted in the FCI godowns. And this is one of the biggest disadvantage, or one of the biggest challenge of the public distribution system. Transportation is a hindrance. At the same time, the distribution is a hindrance. Corruption that is happening at the fair price shops, and the database that is that the government is planning to maintain, where the government is linking the Aadhaar card with the biometric. In Jharkhand recently, there was a news where a person who couldn't prove his identity. Okay, he couldn't prove his identity because his thumbprint couldn't get identified. So because of that, he was denied the food grains, and later, like 1 or 2 days after he was denied, that person is dead because of the hunger. He died because of the hunger. So such a situation, these are all the challenges that we have when we are going digitized. Okay, when we are moving towards the digitization, these are some of the challenges that India has to look at under public distribution system. How can this be made effective and transparent? By having inclusivity, by making sure, by taking the advantages of technology and making sure that no one is left out. Okay, in order to curb the corruption at the fair price shops, in order to make the fair price shops more smart, the technology is required. At the same time, when using the technology, it should be made sure that the people who are working are ethical, and people who are working do not just rely on the technology. There should be one more backup that has to be created, so that the cases like Jharkhand will not happen anytime in the near future. Next question. Elaborate the scope and the significance of food processing industry in India. Food processing industry has been in news for the past 1 year, and food processing industry, government is stressing on food processing industry, because this is an industry which can make the farmers' income double. So see, the present government is working on doubling the farmers' income. That is the main motto of this particular government. So in order to double the farmers' income, food processing industry is something that can come to the help. So what is this food processing? Food processing is simply a method by which the agricultural products are transformed into food products that are fit for consumption. That is the food processing industry. Elaborate the scope and the significance of the food processing industry. What is the scope of food processing industry? See, the scope of food processing industry in India is simple, that India is the world's leading producer of food grains. Okay, India is the largest producer of milk. India is the second largest producer of the rice and wheat. So this is the advantage, and this is the scope for food processing industry in India. At the same time, even though we are producing, at the same time we also have the world's largest market, because our population is around 140 crores. So such a huge market we have, and the lifestyle is changing, and people are moving more towards the fast foods. Okay, we can see in a supermarket, people are moving more towards the fast foods. So in this scenario, all this will be the scope for food processing industry. At the same time, the significance of the food processing industry is what I've already told you. This will help. This will solve the problem of food shortage in India. Okay, because Once the food is processed, the gestation period of the food will increase and the food can be preserved over a long period of time. Second one, it can eliminate the problem of hunger that India is having. Third one, the food processing industry, if it is successful, then this will make the farmer's income enhanced. It will multiply the farmer's income. This will help in doubling the farmer's income. So this is the significance of the food processing industry. You can see it here. India is the second largest producer of wheat, rice, fruits and vegetables. India's food processing sector is one of the largest in the world, and the sector is expected to generate 9 million jobs. This is one of the significance that it will create employment, and it is growing at CAGR of 11%. So these are some of the points that you will have to include when you're writing the scope and the significance of food processing industry. Okay, next question. The increase in the life expectancy in the country has led to newer health challenges. What are the challenges and what steps need to be taken to meet them? Two important components of the question. What is the increasing in the life expectancy mean? You can see here, life expectancy in India rose to 70.19 years in 2022. This was in 2021. In 2021, it was 69.8. Which means, see, the numbers are not so important, but still, as the question has specifically asked about the life expectancy, here you will have to write this data and you have to show that in the year 2022, the life expectancy has grown. When the life expectancy has grown, this will indicate that there are more aged people in the economy. See, this is the same phase where Japan is going through as of now. This is the same phase that Japan is going through, and Japan has more senior citizens than the demographic dividend of Japan. So Japan was a case study in which this particular issue was in use, that the life expectancy was in use. So UPSC wanted you to relate this to India, and UPSC wants you to compare and analyze what will be the challenges and what steps should India take to counter this. See, one challenge that happens is that deteriorating physical balance, because you will have to spend a lot on the healthcare system and the pensions of the age-old population. When you have less people who are working, the large chunk of the senior citizens should be dependent on the people, small group of people who are working. So this will create a challenge to the economy. This will result in a possible decline of productivity and the economic growth. Okay, so the monetary policy, okay, the macroeconomic monetary policy would become ineffective. In addition to it, we also have the health infrastructure that is already overstressed. Okay, these are some of the challenges of increasing population. The steps to be taken. What are the steps to be taken? Investing more on the healthcare, encouraging the older workers to remain longer in the labor force, which means increasing the retirement age. See, increasing the retirement age would be a very short term measure. So, as a long term measure, what we have to do is to maintain the demographic dividend, make sure that the fertility level will not be less than the replacement level. Okay, for a long time, this is something that is sustainable, that any government, particularly India, has to do, because India is going through this process of demographic transition. Okay, it's a very important term that India's important phase that India is going through. India is going through a phase called demographic transition, and India has to be very careful in the near future. Next one. See, first we'll discuss all the questions that are related to the economy and infrastructure, and then we will pick questions which are related to internal security, environment, and disaster management, science and technology. Okay. So the 11th question related to economy infrastructure is the economic growth in the recent past has been led by increasing in the labor activity. Explain the statement, suggest the growth pattern that will lead to the creation of more jobs without compromising the labor productivity. See, first thing that you will be studying in economy is the factors of production. You will have labor, capital, natural resources, and the entrepreneurship are the four essential factors of production. So recently, because of the increase of productivity of the labor, Indian economy has seen a sharp growth. So the question asks, suggest the growth pattern that will lead to the creation of more jobs without compromising the labor productivity. How do we create jobs? We create jobs in the industry, because agriculture is not in a position to create jobs. At the same time, the services also cannot create huge jobs. So it is only the production sector or the manufacturing unit or the industry that can create a lot of jobs. So India has to rely on an industrial and the trade policy that is required in order to make sure India becomes the production hub. Okay, special packages are required for the labor intensive industries. See, labor intensive industries are the industries like textiles, okay, and leather. These are some of the labor intensive industries, and India has to work towards building these labor intensive industries. India shouldn't go for the complete automated or the mechanized industries, because mechanized industries will create an unemployment in India, because our population is very huge. A country like Nordic countries like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, these countries can afford to do it because the demographic dividend of these countries is really, really less. At the same time, in India, India cannot afford to mechanize its industries or agriculture extensively or completely because of the population. There should be a cluster development for the support of MSMEs, urban development with the manufacturing clusters to create jobs, focus on women, focus on inclusive growth, public investment in health, education, police, judiciary can create a lot of government jobs. Okay, this is how the jobs can be created at the same time without compromising on the productivity. Do you think India will meet 50% of its energy needs from the renewable energy by 2030? Okay, this was something that Indian Prime Minister had promised at COP26. Okay, Indian Prime Minister came up with something called as Panchamrit. Panchamrit, where he promised that by 2030, 50% of the India's energy needs would be met by renewable. Justify your answer. How will the shift of subsidies from the fossil fuels to the renewables help in achieving the objective? Okay, so here India will need $223 billion of investment if India has to make sure that 50% of our demand, electricity demand, is being supplied through renewables. As of now, if you want to decode the data, we have 36% of our energy from renewables. Okay, including the large and the small hydro, we have somewhere around this. India is rapidly expanding its deployment of the solar and the wind power generation, and India is also a part of International Solar Alliance. India was the founding member of the International Solar Alliance. At the same time, India is also pushing for the rooftop solar installations, and India is also pushing for the solar powered water pumps in the agriculture. So because of all these solar PV deployment, you can see here, so these are some of the measures that India is carrying out in order to make sure that the 50% of the energy that is produced, okay, is from renewable. After a significant cost reductions, you can see here, the question asks about the subsidies also. Okay, for the renewable energy, the subsidy in 2015 was 1 billion, increasing to 1.4 billion in 2016 and 2.2 billion in 2017. So the subsidies have been increasing. At the same time, this is pushing people to adopt renewable energy. What are the main bottlenecks in the upstream and the downstream process of the marketing of the agricultural products in India? Okay, very important and a very straightforward question which talks about the upstream and the downstream of agricultural marketing and food processing. The term agricultural marketing, how do you understand by agricultural marketing? You have to define it in the introduction, composed of two words, agriculture and marketing. The production revolves is agriculture, and the same marketing of the agricultural produce is the agricultural marketing, that is selling. Clear? This is the capitalistic nature of the agriculture. See, when we talk about agriculture, we will have two important things. One is the agriculture that is subsistent, okay, which is subsistent. Other one is intensive, that is capital intensive. Upstream, what is this upstream? Refers to the material inputs that are required for the agricultural marketing. Downstream is where the products get produced and distributed, and it includes the elements like transportation, distribution, wholesaling, packing, value addition, and food processing. All these will be under the downstream. Okay, what is an integrated farming system? The next question, integrated farming system, how is it helpful to small and marginal farmers in India? So integrated farming system, this is something that was in news, and this is something that could revolutionize the Indian agriculture. Integrated farming system is like, if a farmer is involved in the production of food grain. At the same time, he is also involved in livestock, poultry, fishing. Okay, then this is called as, for this additional employment or additional income, then this system is called as integrated farming. See, this is also the same term you can use for mixed farming also. Mixed farming or mixed cropping. Mixed farming is when a person is involving in production of agricultural products, at the same time he is also having livestock, okay, or poultry or fishing. Okay, this is called as mixed cropping. See, this will increase the farmer's income. At the same time, this will create an additional job, okay, for the employment. Additional employment would be created. See, agriculture is a seasonal job in most of the rural pockets in India. Agriculture is not a job. Agriculture is not something that will give you work for all 365 days. Agriculture is very much seasonal. Whenever a farmer finds extra time, it is his livestock, poultry and fishing that he can take part in, which will also serve the purpose of employment. At the same time, it will also give him additional income. Okay, this is called as integrated farming, and this integrated farming will help the small and marginal farmers because this will increase their income. Okay, these are some of the questions that are revolving around, that were revolving around economics, agriculture and infrastructure.
Hello students. So moving forward, we are going to discuss the remaining part of General Studies 3. That is, in this particular section, we are going to discuss the questions in UPSC Mains that has been asked from subjects such as science and technology, internal security and challenges, as well as disaster management, and along with the some questions that we can say have come from the environment and biodiversity section. So moving forward, the first question that has been asked from the environment section is with regards to the cellulose, and the question is straightforward that each year a large amount of plant material, that is cellulose, is deposited on the surface of planet Earth. So what are the natural processes? Now this is very, very important. This cellulose undergoes before yielding carbon dioxide, water and the other end products. So basically if we try to understand this particular section or this particular question, basically want to know that what do you understand about the carbon cycle and nitrogen cycle, both of which you have to study as far as the environment is concerned. So the general structure of questions should be something like this roughly, that you can start first of all in introductory part with defining or explaining what is a cellulose. So as we can see, cellulose is the most abundant carbohydrate that is present in the plant residues. Once you have defined this, and also you can talk about this particular statement as well, that why a large amount of plant material is deposited on the surface of planet Earth. So obviously it has to do with the natural life cycle of a plant or trees. Then later in the next stage you can discuss about the natural process, how there is a disintegration or decomposition of cellulose that occur in the soil. So in next section you could have written that the decomposition of cellulose occur in the presence of an enzyme that is called as cellulase. Cellulase is an enzyme that is present in almost all the microorganisms such as bacteria and fungi, and under the or with presence of this cellulose enzyme, the cellulose decomposes into disaccharide cellulobiote, and after that through the process of hydrolysis it is converted into glucose. And then further you can go and elaborate that how once the carbon and nitrogen that is being transferred in the soil through carbon nitrogen cycle basically is circulating and basically converting into carbon dioxide, water and other products. Apart from that, we can also talk about that at high temperature we have different types of decomposition, that cellulose directly decompose into solid char, vapors, aerosols and gases such as CO2. Maximum yield of vapors that condense to a liquid called bio oil is also something that is obtained from cellulose, but it has a very high temperature of 500 degree Celsius. Further, you can also write about the decomposition of molten cellulose produces different compounds such as levoglucosan, furans, pyrans and such kind of compounds. And in last in conclusion, you can write about again about cellulose, that within thick cellulose samples, volatile compounds such as levoglucosan undergo secondary reactions to volatile products including pyrans and the light oxygenates such as glycoaldehyde. However, all these reactions is happening at high temperature. Naturally, basically, you have to simply explain the carbon and nitrogen cycle. Then moving forward, the next question again, it is from the environment section, is you have to discuss in detail about the photochemical smog, emphasizing upon three things: the formation, effects and mitigation. And then also the part of question asks you to explain 1999 Gothenburg Protocol. So what you have to keep in mind here, that answer you have to write within 150 words only, and the question is also only of 10 marks. And if you try to understand that how many divisions do we have in this question, so first of all, the photochemical smog, what is photochemical smog? Second, formation. Third, effect. Fourth, mitigation. And fifth, the Gothenburg protocol. So total this 10-mark question has 5 parts. So you can understand that maximum you can write for this 5 part 20-25 words for each of these parts. So general structure of your answer should have been like this. In introductory part, you could have explained that what is a photochemical smog. Photochemical smog, basically, it is made up of two words, that is a photo and chemical. Photo is something that relates to light. Chemical is the chemical products. So such kind of a smog that develops in the presence of light. Which kind of light? Ultraviolet light. And due to this ultraviolet light, several chemicals present in the atmosphere undergoes reaction, and that results into development of photochemical smog. That could have been your introduction. Formation, again same, different complex series of chemical reactions are there that are involved in development of this photochemical smog. And for this particular question, it is something that again every now and then we emphasize upon studying and reading NCERTs properly. So if you have read class 11th NCERTs, and that if you have read the chemistry chapter 13, that is the one of the most important topic. The class 11th chemistry chapter 13 and class 12th biology chapter 12 to 16, these are the most important chapters from which every now and then UPSC keeps on asking question either in prelims or in the mains examination. Now also what you have to keep in mind here, that if you look through the previous year questions, the question on photochemical smog has been asked in prelims examination. So that is how you also have to prepare in hand in hand. When you are solving prelims examination, if you come across some concepts that you're not aware about properly, you should go and read about these concepts and prepare it in also a manner if that can be helpful for the writing mains answer as well. Then formation we have discussed. Third is the effects. So several effects of photochemical smogs are there, such as irritation in the eyes. It also interferes naturally with the nitrogen cycle. It is extremely toxic to human beings. It is also responsible for causing several diseases, especially chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, lung related diseases. This is something you could have written. And then you could have written about mitigation viewpoints, since the photochemical smog is largely causing due to the we can say presence of large amount of chemicals and chemical pollutant in the atmosphere. So basically removing these pollutants, such as removal of non-fossil fuels and this sustainable sources of electricity, focusing upon sustainable sources of electricity such as nuclear power, hydropower, and wind power could be the way forward. And then last part of the question, you had to simply explain that what is 1999 Gothenburg protocol. So basically this protocol is part of convention on long range transboundary air pollution. The pollution, air pollution of such kind, that is not fixed in a particular boundary, it is a transboundary nature. That means this is spread over a large area. And the Gothenburg protocol basically try to abate three processes, that is the acidification, eutrophication, and also the ground level ozone by setting emission ceilings for sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and volatile organic compounds as well as ammonia. So this you could have written in the last part of the answer. So that should have been the general structure of the this particular question. Third is again question that has been directly asked from, we can say it is a combined question. The concept is related to geography, while this is also related to disaster management. So explain the mechanism and occurrences of cloudbursts in the context of the Indian subcontinent and discuss two recent examples. So first of all, in introductory part, you could have simply written about what do you understand by cloudburst, what is the appropriate definition of the cloudburst, and as per the Indian Meteorological Department, any kind of any rainfall that is happening at a rate of more than 100 millimeter per hour over a geographical region of approximately 20 to 30 kilometer per square is categorized as a cloudburst. So this is something you could have included in introductory part. Then you could have written that what is the mechanism of cloudburst. So simple, as far as the Indian subcontinent is concerned, we know that we have a lot of mountains and hills are there, and especially cloudburst in context of India happens in the hilly regions such as Himalayas. So basically what happens, as you know, that we have two branches of monsoon, Bay of Bengal branch and Arabian Sea branch. So when these two branches merge together and collectively when they rise in a form of orographic lift along the slope of Himalayas, there is a very sudden condensation that happens, and also we have very dense cloud formation. Then it is that the cumulonimbus cloud formation that we see, and due to this we have very sudden rainfall that is observed. So basically it is the orographic lift along the Himalayas and the other mountain system of large parcel of moistened air or moisture carrying air that causes the cloudburst. Then you have to also give two recent examples. So one example you can give about in October 2021 when a cloud burst occurred in the Salem district of Tamil Nadu that resulted in almost 230 mm of rainfall in a single day. And similarly, the next example you can give from the recent time in July 2022 when the Amarnath this pilgrimage journey was going on. So cloud burst occur also in Pahalgam en route to the Amarnath cave site. So this should have been the general structure of your answer because only it is 10 mark question. So you could not write a lot, but obviously when you are explaining the cloud burst, you can make a diagram representing the location of different mountains and how the winds are merging and how the winds are climbing in the orographic mechanism. So that could have been a good way of writing this answer. Also, when you're writing answer from geography or disaster management, make sure that you are making at least one or two diagrams or map in 10 marker question and 2 to 3 diagrams or map in the 15 marker questions. Moving forward, the next question has been asked from the internal security and challenges. Again, if you look at the pattern of question that has been asked from internal security and challenging topic, we can clearly see that whatever subtopics that has been mentioned in UPSC syllabus that it releases in its notification, if you try to prepare or make 300, 400 point word notes on each of the topics, then you will be easily able to formulate your answer in the examination. So, question is straightforward. Discuss the types of organized crime, that is you have to study in syllabus, and also it is clearly mentioned in syllabus linkages between terrorism and the organized crime. So you have to describe how the linkages occur and how it happens both at the national level as well as the international level or transnational level. So basically what we can see that we have three parts in this particular question. One is to discuss the types of organized crime, second is describe the linkages at the national level, and third is describe the linkages at the transnational level. So the structure of your question should be very similar to how the question has been formulated or how question has been framed. So in introductory part, simply you can start with defining what is organized crime. For this, you can take the definition as given by the Ministry of Home Affairs, or we can say Maharashtra Control of Organized Criminal Act. It also has defined what is organized crime. Apart from that, a very simple definition has been given by United Nations as well. So that is what you could have written in the first part. In second part, you have talked about the major types of organized crime, such as gang criminality is there, racketeering is there, and syndicate crime is there. Then in the last part, you could have talked about the linkages within India and outside India and how these linkages happen. So several regions are there. We have ineffective governance in many states that leads to development of organized criminal gangs, and many times they are in cahoots, they are in hand in glove with the police organization, with corrupt politicians and administrators. Then there is a weak law and order setup, so this is very conducive for the growth of organized criminal gangs. Then also because both terrorist organizations and organized criminal gangs basically operate when they have something to get from each other. So for example, many times for the financing of different operations, organized criminal gang depend on terrorism and terrorist organizations and vice versa. And also if terrorist organization want to carry out certain attack, if especially this terrorist organization is located outside of the country, then they can take help of the logistical support from the local organized criminal gang, or they can take help in we can say movement of the arms or the movement of money or movement of personnel or as well criminals as well through the operating mechanism of this localized criminal gang or organized criminal gang, and to exploit legitimate activities for criminal purposes. That is how the organized criminal gangs and terrorist organization basically both operate. So this would have been the general structure of your this particular answer. Moving forward, the question number 10 is again related to internal security and challenges, where again you have been directly asked that what are the maritime security challenges in India? Discuss the organizational, technical, and procedural initiative taken to improve maritime security. So basically, again, the question has four parts. In one part, you have discussed about the challenges to maritime security, and in the next part, you have discussed the three aspects of the initiative taken to ensure the maritime security. So again, if you try to understand the basic structure of questions would have been that in introduction you could have talked about that how and why maritime security is an issue for India, and that there you could have drawn the map of India, and on the map of India you can have shown that India has such a long coastline of more than 7,500 kilometers that make it vulnerable from different vulnerable against different challenges emanating from the maritime domain. Once you have discussed that, then you can talk about what are the major challenges, and in that you can have written about piracy. That is one of the major challenges. The ships that is passing especially through the Arabian Sea region, and we have the Somaliland is there around Gulf of Aden. That is very highly pirate prone areas. So that is something that is coming out. Terrorism is there, as we have seen the case of 26/11/2008, when the Ajmal Kasab and other terrorists came from Mumbai harbor through the maritime route from Pakistan. Then we have human trafficking, arms trafficking, illegal weapons, drugs trafficking. All these things is happening in the international sea areas. Then illegal migration, as we see many times, the illegal migrant from Bangladesh region, they try to enter West Bengal region via the Sundarban Delta. That is also one problem. Then we have disputes with neighboring countries, such as we have dispute with Pakistan in the maritime region. That is the Circuit dispute is there. We also have every now and then dispute occurs with the Sri Lanka, when fishermen go and try to catch fish, and they're caught by the Sri Lankan Navy. So we have dispute regarding to Kachachibu Island is there. So these are some disputes that we would have mentioned in brief. So these are the major challenges. And then you have to discuss about the organizational initiative, technical initiative, and procedural initiative. In this, you could have talked about on organizational basis, we are trying to create marine police forces. We are trying to create Indian Coast Guard. We are trying to create a three-layered structure around coastal areas. And the first layer being guarded by the marine police force, second layer being guarded by the Coast Guard, and third layer being guarded by the Indian Navy. Apart from that, we are also trying to develop a lot of different organizations to directly take care of the maritime security. Technical aspect, we are trying to set up vessel traffic management system. We are trying to set up coastal radars. We are trying to set up national coordination control and coordination institute at organization level. So all these are the initiatives that has the government has taken, especially after 26/11 attack on the Mumbai, that basically changed overall setting of the maritime security as far as the government of India is concerned. And then you can talk about similarly the procedural initiative that has been taken. Then moving forward, the question number 15 is from the science and technology topic, and this is something a current affairs based question, and obviously there was expectation that this question can be asked because James Webb Space Telescope was very much in news from past 1 year every now and then, and obviously there was a reason behind that because this is going to be one of the basically most powerful telescope that we have or humans have made to understand and look into the universe. So question is simple, straightforward, that launched on 25th December 2021, James Webb Space Telescope has been much in the news since then. What are its unique features which make it superior to its predecessor space telescope, and what are the key goals of this mission? What potential benefits does it hold for the human race? So basically the question is of 15 mark, but if you try to understand, question has how many parts? The first part, you have to write slightly about the statement that is being given here. The first statement, then the second part of question is the unique feature you have to compare with its predecessor. Third part is the key goal, and the fourth part is the potential benefit. So that is how your structure of the answer should also be arranged. So first we can talk introductory part about the James Webb Space Telescope has been sent by National Aeronautics and Space Administration, that is NASA of United States of America. If you know, you can write also that from where it was launched, from French Guiana in South America, and thus it opened a new era of astronomy. Apart from that, then you can talk about how it is unique. So you can compare the James Webb Space Telescope with the Hubble Space Telescope. That was its most worthiest predecessor, we can say. And also you can try to compare with the Herschel's telescope. That is the second important telescope. So by putting a comparison of Hubble Space Telescope, James Webb Space Telescope, and the Herschel Space Telescope, you can write a good answer about its uniqueness. The important point that we can see clearly, it is given here. The major differences lies in the wavelength range, that Wave covers 0.6 to 0.28 micron, Herschel covers 60 to 500 micron. Similarly, the mirror diameter is also much more larger in the James Webb Space Telescope. Apart from that, we also have covered in detail when the James Webb Space Telescope was launched, that what are its unique feature, what are the payloads it is carrying, how it will function, and what are its goal and objective. So if you have not checked out, you can still check out this particular video about James Webb Space Telescope on our YouTube channel. Then after, we can write about what is the major objective of the Webb Space Telescope. So search for galaxies that have formed the very beginning after the Big Bang that led to the evolution of universe. Then you can also talk about that it also will help in determining the evolution of galaxies from their earlier formation until now. It will also observe the stages of formation of stars until the formation of planetary system, and it will measure the physical as well as chemical properties of the planetary systems and investigate the potential for life in such systems. So these are the major objectives of this telescope. The potential benefit obviously will be because it will help humanity understand the origins of the universe and our place in it, and also it will study the atmosphere of wide diversity of exoplanets, and it's quite possible that by studying the diversity of the exoplanets, by studying the outer atmosphere of these exoplanets, we might be able to understand that what is the possibility of extraterrestrial life that might or might not exist in the universe. So this is something that you could have written in the conclusion. So that is all about this particular question. Now, second question, again, it is something that is on the expected line, obviously, because from last 2 3 years, 2 years basically, we are suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic. So the vaccine, India has been at the forefront of the forefront as far as the development of vaccine is concerned. So basic principle you have to explain behind vaccine development. How do vaccines work? This is something that is from the conceptual part of science and tech, conceptual part from NCRTs you can actually answer. And last is what approaches were adopted by Indian vaccine manufacturers to produce COVID-19 vaccine. So basically, if you try to look at this question, this is a very, very good answer. This very good question, because here your current affairs understanding or current affairs knowledge is being checked along with the clarity of the static concepts such as the working of the vaccine. So this is the kind of question or amalgamation of concepts and statics and the current affairs is something that is UPSC keeps on doing that. So in introductory part, you can simply write about what do you understand by term vaccine and how does vaccine protect human beings. Then after you write introductory part, you can go on and talk about that how the vaccines work. So simple logic is there that when our body is invaded by microorganisms, then gradually their number increases, and as they multiply and as they grow, we feel infected by these microorganisms. Once this infection takes a root, then our body undergoes the illness. Now what happens that once body feels sick, once illness occurs, the immune system is triggered, and the response of immune system is such that it tries to make and use all the tools it needs to fight this particular infection, and that is when it start to make the antibodies. Then after the disease subside, after the illness subsides, there are memory cells that remain within our body, and these memory cells remember that what has learned about how to protect against the disease from the last infection. And once again, if suppose after few years or few months again, if the same infection occurs, if the same disease occurred, then body can encounter the same virus or bacteria again, and it will produce the antibodies by the help of its memory cell, by remembering that which antibodies can help fight the body better and attack the germ more quickly and efficiently the second time. So this is the whole mechanism how the vaccine or whole concept on the basis of which vaccines work. Now, as far as the manufacturing and the approaches of manufacturing of vaccines in India is concerned, so basically Indian vaccine manufacturers have taken two approaches. The first approach is focusing upon the scientific and epidemiological evidences to gauge the effectiveness or efficacy of the vaccine. And second, also they have focused on systematic end-to-end planning, that right from the producer to consumer, vaccine is able to vaccine is able to be supplied at a desired rate. Then overall, three phases of production has been as far as the Indian vaccine manufacturing is concerned. In first phase, the focus was on protecting healthcare workers and frontline workers. In second phase, focus was on protecting the most vulnerable people, population more than 45 years of age that account for more than 80% of COVID mortality in the country. And lastly, in third stage, it was a liberalized phase when vaccine pricing and scaling up of vaccine was done in such a manner that every individual can be brought under the coverage of COVID vaccine. And that is why we have two vaccines, that is Covishield and Covaxin, that was being circulated. One was made by Serum Institute, while other was made by Bharat Biotech. And this would, on the hand, incentivize vaccine manufacturers to rapidly scale their production, and on the other hand, it will also attract new vaccine manufacturers. This point something you could have written as a conclusion, or even in conclusion, if you cannot write this, then you could have simply written the name of the two vaccines that is being circulated in India and other vaccines that are being circulated in India but made by foreign manufacturers. So that is all about this particular question. Now again, the 17th question is 15-mark question, and this is something that is related to the climate change. So it is from the environment and biodiversity. Question is very simple, that you have to discuss global warming and also mention its effect on the global climate. Apart from that, you have to explain the control measures to bring down the level of greenhouse gases which causes global warming in the light of Kyoto Protocol 1997. Again, if you see, the question is divided into several parts, and that is a mistake that most people do, that instead of focusing on each of these individual parts, they write a very generalized answer, and many times the actual demand of the question is not addressed as per the answer. So what you have to first write about in introduction, you can simply start by explaining that what do you understand by the term global warming. Once you explain what is global warming, as you can clearly see from here, again this is something a very common definition, you can even think this definition by yourself, this is something you not have to remember, and then write whatever comes into your mind, whatever like you can whatever you find suitable. Then second, you can write about the effect on the global climate. So several effects is there. Obviously, we have melting of glaciers. You can give the examples of recent melting of glacier that has been observed in the Ross Antarctic shelf. Second is lakes around the world, including Lake Superior, are warming rapidly and in some cases faster than the surrounding environment. Third, you can write about the migration patterns of animals are changing, migration pattern of birds are changing, even plants are changing, the dates of activities that been sowing, harvesting and growing, everything is changing. Then fourth is temperature, obviously all across the world is rising, not only atmospheric temperature, but also the sea surface temperature is continuously on the rise. That also is a cause of concern for especially countries which are island countries such as Mauritius, Seychelles, Maldives, and island countries of Pacific Ocean. Then lighting is another weather feature that is being affected by global warming. According to 2014 study, a 50% increase in the number of lightning strikes has occurred. Apart from that, you can write also about that the intensity and the frequency of cyclones and hurricanes, these kind of weather event also has increased mainly as a result of global warming. So these are the major effects that we can see. Then in the next stage, you have to write about the control measures to bring down the level of greenhouse gases. So control measures, now you do not have to write any control measures, you have to write the control measures in the context of the Kyoto Protocol 1997. So again, before writing control measures, you could write briefly that what is Kyoto Protocol 1997, and after that you can write about the mechanisms that has been developed under this protocol to tackle that menace of the global warming. So under this protocol, we have three major mechanisms. One is international emission trading, second is clean development mechanism, and third is the joint implementation. All of these three you can easily find out, or you can easily remember if you have studied environment section, and you can briefly elaborate upon all these three mechanisms. So basically, the Kyoto Protocol ensures that people or countries or the organizations are incentivized in such a manner that they are basically by themselves they are able to reduce the carbon footprint of their organization. So this is the mechanism how the Kyoto Protocol tries to achieve it. And in conclusion, you could have written some way forward, or also you could have written about the we can say net effectiveness of Kyoto Protocol, that what we are seeing in today's world. So that is about this particular question. Next is again question related directly to the disaster management. That is, explain the causes and effects of coastal erosion in India. What are the available coastal management techniques for combating the hazard? So basically, again, question is made up in three parts: the causes of coastal erosion, effects of coastal erosion, and the discussion about coastal management technique. Now, a standard way of approaching this question is, again, you can draw a map of India and so that India has such a huge coastline, and that is why the coastal erosion is something that we should be concerned about. Once you have drawn the map, you can go and define that what do you understand by the term coastal erosion, and then you can talk about the major causes of coastal erosion. The major causes are wave energy. We know that coastal areas are continuously affected by the coastal waves, and whenever the coastal waves strike the coastal regions, they causes erosion by the force of their water. Then second is natural hazard like cyclone, expansion of seawater, storm surges, tsunami, etc. is the other major reason. Apart from that, melting of glaciers and ice sheets as well causes coastal erosion. Then dredging, sand mining, coral mining. These are some anthropogenic phenomena or anthropogenic activities that can be directly associated with coastal erosion. And then we have been sparked, the erosion or the extent of erosion has been sparked recently due to development of fishing harbors and dams that is constructed in catchment areas of rivers and ports, and thus the flow of sediment in the deltaic region is reduced. That also leads to, we can say, higher rate of coastal erosion. Once you have established the causes, then you can talk about the effects. So effect is simple: large number of people are basically living in the coastal areas, so they will become vulnerable because they have to be displaced from the areas where they are occupying. Recently we have seen the cases in Australia where the cliffs are about to disintegrate, and there are a lot of houses, a lot of houses made up in millions and millions of dollars were basically destroyed. So that is something that is because of the coastal erosion, vulnerability to the property, vulnerability to the economy, as well as vulnerability to the population that is residing in the coastal areas. Then it also leads to depletion in the resources such as fishery resources, as well as the other kind of mineral resources. Fourth is it causes degradation of the ecological biodiversity. Fourth, it can also cause pollution from industry, agriculture, and urban areas. It is also degrading the quality of much of the world's fresh water. So these are some of the impacts of coastal erosion that we can clearly see. Now, third part is about what are the techniques do we have to combat this particular hazard. So techniques to combat coastal erosion can be divided into two types. One is the hard structural or engineering option. Second is the soft structural or engineering option. Hard structural engineering options basically refer to construction of such structures on the beach, such as sea walls, groins, breakwaters, or artificial headlands, or further offshore breakwaters. Soft structural options are to dissipate wave energy by mirroring natural forces and maintaining the natural topography of the coast. This includes beach nourishment or feeding of the beaches, like you deposit large amount of sand and sediments, the building up of dunes, revegetation, so that the effect, or we can say the force of the coastal waves are not that much higher to cause erosion in the coastal areas, and other non-structural management option can be brought under soft structural option. So basically, and then finally you can talk about the conclusion. In conclusion, you can say that the best way possible or best way forward is to combine both the hard and soft solution to improve the efficiency of the options and also provide environmentally and economically acceptable coastal protection system. So this should have been the proper framework of your answer. Apart from that, if you know, you can also write about what is the initiative recently government of India has taken to preserve the coastal ecosystem, or to basically mitigate the effect of coastal erosion. So that is also one way of ending the answer. Then coming to the 19th, again it is a question directly asked from the internal security and challenges from the subtopics that has been clearly mentioned in your syllabus. So question is very straightforward. It is about cyber security. So in the first part of the question, you have discussed about what are the different elements of the cyber security. Then in second part of the question, you have discussed about what are the various challenges in the cyber security. Then in third part, you have discussed, not discussed, but basically you have to examine the extent to which India has successfully developed a comprehensive national cyber security strategy. So basically, question we can see is made up into three parts. So in introductory part, you can simply define that what do you understand by the term cyber security. So basically, cyber security is a way of preventing and protecting the system, protecting of networks and technologies from any kind of unauthorized access. This is one way to define cybersecurity. Obviously, there can be multiple definitions that by your own understanding you can come up with yourself. Then second is you have to talk about the different elements of cybersecurity. So basically, several elements are there. The first element can be application security, where the focus is on securing the applications, because we know that every day millions, hundreds and hundreds of applications are being launched for various purposes, and some are critical applications such as banking application or financial applications, and some are non-critical. But overall, by providing security to these applications, this is also providing security to these applications are also one element of the cyber security. Second is ensuring the information security. There are huge number of data, huge number of information is there that is flowing through the computer network, that is flowing through the computer system. Some of these data are very sensitive in nature, such as personal data, such as financial data, such as banking data. So this is something that also had to be secured while it is being transmitted from one system to the another system. Third, the ensuring security of network is another important point, because apart from this soft flow of data, the main computer network is made up of hard parts as well. Or we can for example, we have servers are there, you have computer systems are there. So ensuring security of these is also very important. Fourth is operation security, so that many firms, many organizations that are working in the area of computer network, that are basically relying on the computer network. We have today a lot of critical sectors such as power sector, nuclear energy sector, defense sector are there, that are overly relying on the computer network and its system. And that is why, by ensuring that the operations that they are carrying out, so that they are able to maintain a secrecy, so that they're able to, we can say, so that cyber hackers or cyber criminals or cyber terrorists are not able to damage this critical information infrastructure. And fourth is also ensuring the end user education, because if end user is not educated enough, end user is not aware enough, then they are much more prone to become, we can say, victim of any kind of cyber crime. So this is all you could have mentioned in the elements of cyber security. Then we have to discuss about the, or examine about the national cyber security strategy. So that is something you could have written about as well. That national cyber security strategy was conceptualized by Data Security Council of India in year 2020. And what are its main components? So total 3-4 main components you could have written about, and then you could have talked about that how these are how, whether they have been successful enough or not successful enough as far as the unveiling of this strategy is concerned. So here you could have written about points such as large scale digitization of public services is one focus area. Second is ensuring the security, supply chain security. Third is critical information infrastructure protection. Fourth is ensuring the safety and security of the digital payment, because especially after demonetization, a lot of people of India have shifted to the digital payment, and this is something that has become a norm rather than exception. Then we have state level cyber security, and then we have security of small and medium businesses as well. So these are the main components as far as the NCSS is concerned. And then in conclusion, you could have written about that how far it has been able to achieve its goal. So that could have been the general structure of your answer. Coming to the last topic, again, it is directly the internal security challenges taken from the subtopics, that is the Naxalism. So, first of all, a statement is given. Now, this is something very, very important because many people do this mistake that when they see the statement and then the second part is the main question. So, many times they skip the statement and start directly addressing or start directly writing the main part of the question. But that is something that has to be avoided. If any statement is given in this question, first you can try to define or write few points or explain about that particular statement. Then in this context, discuss the emerging issues and suggest a multi-layered strategy to tackle the menace of Naxalism. So how could you have written this answer? Simple. First, you could have defined that what do you understand by Naxalism, or also if you can, if you do not want to write in this manner, you could also given a slide background history of Naxalism. So when Naxalism has emerged, what is Naxalism, what is the ideology of Naxalism. So in that context, you could have talked about Naxalism has emerged in 1970s in the Naxalbari village in Darjeeling district of West Bengal as a method of revolution by the by the tenants against their landlords, by the peasants laborers against their landlords. You can written the name of the major leaders such as Kanu Sanyal and Charu Mazumdar, who was the main leader of Naxal movement in that time. And after the historical background, then you can talk about the how Naxalism is a social, economic, and developmental issue. And then you can talk about it, how the social maldevelopment or social maladministration give rise to Naxalism. Here you can talk about the this problem is that there is not enough schools are there, not enough basic facilities such as we not have water facilities available to the people in the Naxal affected areas. We not have education facilities. We not have health facilities. So because of this social backwardness, because of the lack of this social capital, many people are getting attracted to the Naxal ideology, and that is how Naxals are able to recruit huge number of cadres. And not only that, they are also have been able to basically create a lot of Naxal sympathizers in the village areas because social capital and social development is missing there. Second, you can talk about also how it has emerged as an outcome of economic maldevelopment, because if you talk about a large number of Naxals, they are basically have grievance against the government because they have been displaced forcefully what used to be their own land, what used to be their own village, what used to be their own forest. So basically, large number of people, especially as a result of development projects such as dams, such as development of industries, such as development of educational institutions, have been displaced, and especially of these are the tribals that are in the higher number. Then third, you can talk about the overall developmental issues is there. Again, same thing, there is a lack of development basically with regards to infrastructure. The large number of villages are there in India which are Naxal infected or Naxal infested villages who do not have basic cell phone, basic telecommunication facilities. For going to the nearby center, they have to travel through the rivers, they have to cross through a dense forest area, putting their life at the risk. So all these basically creates a grievance, and this is where the government is missing, the government machinery is missing in action. And when the government machinery is missing in action, obviously the space will be filled up by the alternative organization, and that is in the case of India has been the Naxal organization. Then you can talk about the emerging issues. What is the issues obviously that has come out due to this threat of Naxalism? So here again you can talk about that basically it causes or disrupt the national life by creating disruption in the development of infrastructure, by economic by we can say by prohibiting any kind of economic development in the interior and the rural areas of India. And this is something you can write with the examples. Apart from that, they also directly causes security threat because they have engaged in a lot of violent activities, such as in year 2010 we have 76 CRPF personnel and police personnel were killed in the Dantewara district. Then recently in 2015-16 again we have violent activities that have happened in the Sukma region of Chhattisgarh. So all these you could have mentioned as a result of the issue or as a result of Naxalism, the issues that has emerged. And finally, you have to talk about the multi-pronged strategy. So multi-pronged strategy, here you have to discuss that what are the strategy the government has taken or should take from the security perspective, what are the strategy the government has adopted from the developmental perspective, because the lack of development generally attracts people toward Naxalism. So security perspective, security strategy, development related strategy, and also we have media related strategies there, because many times government is not able to reach out to the people in these rural areas and the Naxals are able to basically make them Naxals are basically are able to reach in these areas, and thus people fail in the trap of the Naxal literature and Naxal viewpoint. Then apart from that, you can also talk about the perception management strategy, that government perception toward the people of the Naxal areas, their perception toward government is kind of negative in manner. So that is something that also has to be changed. So these are the several multi-pronged strategy. The government has taken several steps, as well as many other steps can be taken in these areas that you could have written in the last part of the answer, and then you could have concluded your answer by talking about that how the menace of Naxalism is continuously declining since year 2012, and this you can represent by giving example of the number of infected district, how it has declined in last 8 or 10 years. And also obviously you can make a map of India as well here, and so on the map of India, that which regions of India are mostly affected by the Naxalite phenomena. So that could have been the general structure of your particular answer. So I think that is all about the question that has been asked in this year's General Studies 3 from Science and Technology, Disaster Management and Internal Security and Challenges. Again, by looking at the questions, we can say that if you really want to write good answers, you have to first of all focus upon what are the topics that is mentioned in the UPS syllabus. Once you look at those topics, try to make sure that you have 300 to 400 word notes on each of these subtopics, and this you can enrich by adding current affairs examples from your last 1 and 2 years. After you have done this, then obviously I am sure that you will be able to write good answers with a blend of static concepts as well as the current affairs examples. So that is for this particular paper. I hope you got a brief idea that how your preparation should be. If you are new aspirant, now you will know that how you have to prepare for the next year. And if you already have appeared in this examination, then and if you have done some mistake, I'm sure that this video will helpful also in underlying those mistakes. That is all for today. Thank you very much.